the LSAT fundamentally comes down to, I think, two skills. One, do you understand exactly what each sentence said? Nothing more, nothing less. And then do you understand what must be true on the basis of that claim? Nothing more, nothing less.
Hello and welcome to episode 464 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. I'm Nathan Fox. With me is Ben Olson. We're the co-founders of LSATdemon.com and the LSAT Demon Daily podcast. You can be LSAT famous by sharing news or asking questions on our website, thinkinglsat.com. Go to lsatdemon.com/free for all sorts of free resources, including invitations to free LSAT classes. There's a upcoming LSAT registration deadline that you should be aware of. Tomorrow on Tuesday, July 23rd is the deadline for the September 2024 LSAT. Pretty simple math on that. If you're happy with your timed practice test scores, then go ahead and register for the September LSAT. If you're not happy with your timed practice test scores, then please don't waste the money. Don't waste your Saturday. Don't waste your time or energy. Don't put bad scores on your official record. Your practice tests won't lie. So register if your practice tests indicate that you should. If and only if your practice tests indicate that you should.
Yeah, this is one of those tests that people are going to be tempted to do it, even if they're not ready, because they're hoping to apply this cycle. But law school will always be there.
Yeah.
So just focus on getting your best score first.
Yeah, I just got an email today from Kaylin. You remember when Kaylin used to teach for LSAT Demon?
Yeah.
Remember how that was like yesterday that Kaylin used to teach for LSAT Demon?
Yeah.
I got her like bar examiner certification or whatever that she used to work for us. I got that yesterday in my email, and it was just like, what, Kaylin? Yeah, sure enough, graduated from UT. Applying for the bar already.
Yeah. I remember when she was debating that too. That's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It just feels like it was yesterday, and that we've had that experience so many times over the years. We hear all the time from people who are very thankful that they pushed law school off. You never need to apply now. You never need to take the LSAT now. And you will thank us if you take our advice and you just slow down a little bit. But it's very clear that, if your practice tests aren't where you want them to be, and there's only 6 weeks remaining before the official test, it's just not a test that you can really cram for. If you're within a few points, then okay, yeah, maybe. But if you're 15, 20 points away from your goal, it's not going to happen in the next 6 weeks. Just don't register for that test. By all means, study hard, but don't force yourself. Don't put yourself in a bad, anxiety producing position by registering for a test that your practice tests clearly indicate you're not ready for. First email on our agenda today is from Ash. The subject is a question based on a cringeworthy saga of self-redemption.
Okay. In 2022, I received advice to take a cold diagnostic official test and that I could never truly improve my score by studying. I scored 152 and 155 in September and November. I applied in December of 2022 and was waitlisted at WashU. I got off the waitlist a month before 1L classes. I discovered your podcast and did not go.
Oh, thank God. Of all the schools that you should not accept a waitlist offer from, WashU is like number one on the list, because WashU is just a huge scholarship giver. And they're not going to give you a scholarship when you're coming off of the wait list. I mean, we talk about
or
WashU.
With a 155, yeah.
We talk about WashU a lot, but just, I'll give you those numbers quickly to update. There are 4% of the people at WashU who pay full price. There are only 14% of people who pay half or more of the nominal tuition at WashU. It's a total of 19% who either get a full ride or full ride plus stipend, and 63% who get more than a 50% discount. A total of 63, 73, 81%, a total of 81% of the class at WashU that pays something less than half price.
Wow.
And that's not going to be you if you get in off the wait list. If you get in off the wait list, they're going to charge you full or damn near full. You know, they might try to offer you some lame scammership where they say, oh, because of your academic promise, we'd love to give you $7,500 off your first year or whatever. And it's like, yeah, but you're giving full rides to 19% of the people here. You're giving a
Hmm.
stipend to 10% of the people here. You want me to pay what to go to your
Yeah.
school? And so, yeah, really glad that whoever we're looking at here,
Ash.
sorry, Ash, yeah, really glad that Ash did not take that waitlist offer.
Yeah. Ash continues, I have now been studying with the demon for about 1+ quality hours a day since April of 2024, logging 150 plus hours. After practice testing weekly in the 168 to 171 range, my original goal, I signed up to take the August and September tests. I have a 4.19 GPA with degrees in economics and finance plus strong softs and want to pursue tax law.
Wow.
1. Yeah, I mean, geez, that's a great GPA. 1. Am I repeating the same mistake by signing up to take the test, even though I am consistent and have a good score of 171 in my past, but not my new dream score of 174? I don't want to settle, but when will I have done enough to be ready? I have 3 official tests left that I want to make the most of. Northwestern plus WashU go from more than half to full / stipend with 3 points.
So what Ash is doing there is looking at our scholarship estimator, the scholarship estimator, which is lsatdemon.com /scholarships. It'll take your LSAT and your GPA and it'll calculate you, your chances of scholarships using last year's American Bar Association 509 data reports. Just it's a way of visualizing the public data about scholarships. And Ash is saying, hey, 3 more points gets me, a full ride or a stipend instead of one of those 55% scholarships. Maybe I get 100% scholarship or 110% scholarship with a few more LSAT points. And that does make sense. If you look at WashU's 509, their 50th percentile LSAT is a 173. So at a 171, more than half the people at the school scored higher than you did on the LSAT. So why would they give you one of their best scholarship offers? But at a 174, now you're above their 50th percentile. And so it now becomes clear that, hey, look, I've got a GPA that's well above your 50th percentile, and I have an LSAT above your 50th percentile. They should give you one of their very best offers scholarship-wise in order to entice you to come to their school, because you can probably get into a lot better schools than WashU with a 4.1 something and a 174. You should be looking at Harvard, Stanford, Yale, Columbia, whatever. So yeah, the likes of WashU would have to make you a real generous offer to get you off of those more prestigious schools. I guess Ash's question is, when is enough enough? How do you know that you should start taking the test officially when you've already made so much progress? How would you know that now's the time?
Well, I think I would look to a couple things. One, would you be happy with a 171 or even possibly a lower score were you to take it? If you would be, and it sounds like you wouldn't be, then maybe you need to delay. The other thing here, though, and that is that it's the middle of July, right? And the test isn't until August. We're talking about 3 points. I think it's very possible that you could get there by test date.
Yeah, I'll push back on that a little bit, though, because this looks like a single 171 and actually a range of 168 to 171. I think 171 is the single highest score that Ash has ever achieved. So Ash is like looking at that high score and saying, well, with 3 more points on top of that, then I could get this. But, Ash, I think that you're a 168 to a 171.
Yeah.
Let's call that a 169 and a half, if that's all the information I have about you. You're a 169.5 to me.
Mm-hmm.
And is a 169.5 going to get you what you want to get at Wash U? I don't know. I mean, that's definitely below their 50th percentile. It seems like probably a no-go for August.
Yeah, I mean, you're signed up, so at this point you can wait and make the decision before the test date and see if things change between now and then. But if they don't, be willing to walk away. You only
You're
have
not
3
going to get
tests
your money
left.
back if you withdraw, but a withdrawal doesn't count as one of your official attempts. You can save that official attempt for later. It's like, dude, your shoes are almost tied, but not quite tied. Maybe you want to tie your shoes before you step to the plate.
Mhm.
It's close to ready. But why would you
Yeah,
just step up there and like take strike one while you're looking at your laces?
yeah.
Right? I just don't see any reason why Ash would rush into it. I do want to address something that Ash said at the top, which was, I took a cold diagnostic and I was told that I could truly never improve my score by studying.
Mm,
That myth is out there, man.
mhm.
I don't know why that's out there, but it's out there. And it is a really damaging falsehood about the law school admission test. Not only do we see people improve, but we see people improve by 20, 25, 30, 35 points sometimes.
Yeah.
So Ash, you've done great that you've improved as much as you've already improved. Looks like you've already improved almost 20 points off of your official scores that you have on record.
Oh, and this actually, by bringing us back to the beginning of this email, you're reminding me of something. If he scored a 152 cold diagnostic,
I'm not sure that's a cold diagnostic.
oh, I received advice to take a
Oh, to
cold
take a cold
diagnostic.
diagnostic official test.
Yeah, I think
So
it
just
might be.
sit for it with no prep.
Wow. Because
So
that's a fucking
152,
good score.
that's
Yeah.
a really good cold. If that's like a SAT for the actual official LSAT and had a 152 with no prep,
Yep.
you should definitely be solidly into the 170s before you sit for another test.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's things that you don't understand about the test, Ash. You've studied a lot, by the way, but you haven't studied that much.
Yeah. Some people, you might benefit from going to 2 hours a day. I mean,
100,
it's not, yeah.
150 hours since April of this year. I mean, that's good. It's a good start. But we've got 80 official practice tests. We've got thousands and thousands of questions, thousands, tens of thousands of explanations, written explanations, video explanations, classes, recorded classes, live classes. I don't think you've done more than scratch the surface. But I think that there's a lot more work to be done. With a diagnostic that high, I think you're capable of a 175.
Yep.
And I don't think I would take the official test until I saw that 175 on one of my practice tests.
And with that 175 and a 4.19, you can go anywhere.
Yep, you can apply anywhere. You won't get into every single school because there's just a lot of arbitrary random luck.
Yep.
But you will get amazing offers and you will get into schools that are more prestigious than Wash U. And if Wash U is really your target, you will get better offers than Wash U, which means
Mm-hmm.
that Wash U will have to really back up that Brinks truck in order to entice you to go there. If you get into Northwestern, or if you get into Chicago, or if you get into, Harvard, Stanford, Yale, UVA, whatever, all those
Yeah.
schools, it's like Wash U knows that you are a high risk to walk if you get into those schools. And with those kinds of numbers, with a 175, you're getting into those schools. Some of them.
Yep.
So I think I would tell Ash to push August. And I'm close to telling Ash to go ahead and just reschedule the September test and push it another cycle. The deadline is coming up, as we said at the top of the show. The deadline is this coming Tuesday, tomorrow, as you listen to this show. The deadline for September is tomorrow. You can push from the September test. You can push for free. You can push to a later test.
Yeah, I don't know. At the same time, I feel like Ash is a great student.
Yeah.
Ash works a little bit more per day if it's
Yeah.
tolerable, and could end up seeing a decent amount of progress, especially by September.
Yeah.
So
And for
just
August,
be willing to walk away.
You don't need to make up your mind now for August because you're not going to get a refund anyway. So you could leave yourself registered until the day before, a couple days before the August test. And if you've hit those 174, 175 practice tests, then go ahead and take August. September, if you wanted to, you could leave yourself registered for September and just consider that as well an option to take the September test. Be willing to walk away from that $200 something registration fee.
Yep. That's
if your practice tests aren't where you want them. You don't have to take it just because you're signed up. You don't have to take it just because you already paid that fee. Law school costs $200,000 and the test costs $200.
Yep.
So it's this small investment if you end up walking away from that registration fee.
Totally.
Yeah.
This next one is an ask button question from Abigail. Thanks for sharing this, Abigail. Yeah.
Says, just a general question about logical opposites here. Is there an easy way to tell when the logical opposite of something will be not condition or antonym of condition? For example, whether the contrapositive of if you're not indoor, you will fail would be if you don't fail, you were indoor. Or if you succeed, you were indoor. Is there a condition between success and failure that we have to account for? Or is success simply the lack of failure and vice versa? Along the same vein, would the opposite of likely be not likely or unlikely? Also, how do we judge the difference in probability between not likely and unlikely? The former somewhere around 49% and the latter closer to 0%? Question mark.
Okay.
It's probably possible for the listener to understand that question, by the way.
Yeah.
Should we take one at a time?
Yeah, let's take one at a time. Let's start with fail versus not fail versus success.
Okay.
So you can fail, or the logical opposite of that. Wait, I don't even think that's the right terminology. But negating that would be, okay, you can either fail or you can not fail. If you don't fail, does that mean that you succeeded?
Yeah. It depends on context. It always depends on context. Did the context of the question say that the test had occurred and the test has two states, pass, fail? Or did the context not say that? Did the context say, if you fail your driver's test, you have to wait 2 weeks to take it again? Because if it was the former, like the test was happening and there were two states, fail and not fail, like, or fail and succeed, then the opposite of, if you took the test, then the opposite of fail is succeed. And the opposite of succeed is fail. If there's only two outcomes and I know that you're taking the test. But do I know that you're taking the test? Because in the latter example, if the rule was, if you fail your driver's test, you have to wait 2 weeks to take it again. Well, yeah, but did you even take it? Okay, it might be that the test is binary, but there could be a third state, which is you didn't even take the test. And so in that case, you can have not succeeded on the test, but you can also have not failed on the test, which means that even if you didn't succeed, you don't necessarily have to wait 2 weeks because you also didn't fail.
Yeah. So what you're saying is just because you didn't fail doesn't mean you necessarily succeeded. It depends on the context.
Yeah.
Another example could be the LSAT, right? Okay, you got a 152. You didn't fail, but is that success?
Right. Yeah, I just think context is everything. Students always look for hard and fast rules. And the answer is, well, what is the context, though, that we're dealing with here? Because everything is always relative. Yeah. It's not just this like idea of, no, but I need to find the logical, or, it's either the not, is it not this, or is it the opposite of this? Well, I don't know because I don't know what the context is. Yeah. So there's not an easy way to tell.
Yeah. There are some, there are some rules, obviously. And I think that But there's also the question of how valuable they are. I'm thinking about this right here, right? How often does the question hinge on the difference between likely, not likely, and unlikely? There is a difference, but I'm trying to
Yeah.
remember the time where I was like, oh, wait, is this 50% or 51%? It doesn't seem like it's something that's tested ever or nearly as often as anyone seems to think it is. But let's talk about this. What does it mean for it to be likely to rain?
I would say that means it's more than half the time.
I
So
agree.
50.001%,
Yeah.
right?
It's more likely to happen than not happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just something north of 50%. Could be 99%, could be 100%,
Yep.
could be barely over 50%, but it's not 49%. If you say it's likely to rain on the LSAT, that means that it is more likely than not.
So then what does not likely mean?
Not likely just means that it is not likely. Well, I think it's just the logical opposite of likely. If likely means 51% or 50.001% or whatever, then not likely means something less than that. I suppose it could be 50% on the nose, or it could be any number less than that. It's probably some number less than that, but I
I
don't know
think
how much less likely.
exactly. Well, I think so. I do think that literally speaking, not likely means 50% or lower,
Hmm.
because if you have a 50% chance of whatever happening, rain, that's not likely. It's right. It's right in
Yeah.
the middle. But the
Yeah.
thing is, when does that come up on the
Right.
test?
Trying to think of a single question where that actually mattered. I
Yeah.
don't really. I think you're overthinking it. I think you're getting yourself caught up in the weeds of these things instead of just reading for context. There's going to be some wrong answers there that are wrong
Yeah.
for other reasons.
Yep.
And you just don't really need to be worrying about, you don't need to be obsessing over the exact whatever. There's one right answer. It's justified by the facts, justified by the record, justified by the answer they asked or the question they asked you. And there's 4 wrong answers. And you should be able to sort it out without resorting to like hard and fast rules about this stuff.
Yeah. Now to close this up, what does unlikely mean?
Less than 50%.
Yep.
So yeah, okay. So there's a difference between not likely and unlikely,
Mhm.
because unlikely is saying that it's actually like, yeah, something south of 50%. I
Yeah.
would
It's
say not
more likely
likely.
not to happen.
I would say not likely includes that razor's edge of exactly 50%. Although you could certainly make the counter argument that if it's as likely as not, yeah, cannot likely include 50%. If it's as likely as not, like, flipping a coin, right? Is it likely that it's going to be heads? Well, it's not more than 50% of the time,
Yep.
but
So
it
it's
would
not
also be
likely.
crazy to say that it's unlikely.
Exactly. And it would be unfair to say it's unlikely. So it's
Right.
just it's
But
that
can
one.
you say it's not likely? Because I guess you can, because likely means more than 50% of the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's weird. And okay, show me a single question where that matters. I
Where
just
that
don't think
matters.
there is
Yeah.
one.
It's this is the thing that also happens with some, right? They're like, wait, so you're saying some means at least one, but what if it's plural? And what if I have two? And it's like, hey,
Show me one question where that matters.
it doesn't come down to
Yeah.
that. The test is never like, aha, I got you. Could have actually been 2 people there, or could have been 1 person. It's
Right.
just some, most, which is okay, more than half, and then all, or not most. But again, that's just okay, fine, 50% or lower. The bottom line here is that for fail versus not fail versus succeed, context and the definition of success matters. Maybe for a word like likely, not likely, or unlikely, we don't need any context to know exactly what it means, but who cares?
Yeah. I mean, it is clear that fail means, the test happened and you failed.
Yep.
Succeed means the test happened and you succeeded.
Mm-hmm.
Not fail? I don't really know. You could have
Mhm.
succeeded, or you could have not taken the test.
Yeah.
Or you could have taken the test and it was inconclusive.
Yep.
Same thing with not succeed. Well, okay, you didn't succeed, but anything else is possible, which means you could have failed, or maybe you didn't take the test, or maybe you took the test and the results were inconclusive.
Or there's a middle ground, right? It's just like grades. If success is an A, then a C is not success, but it's also not necessarily
Not
failure.
necessarily fail, unless there's like a definition that
Yep.
says to succeed, you have to have a B or higher or whatever.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Abigail, for sending that in. Next one is from Anya. The subject is plateaus.
Hey, demons! Exclamation point. I like that. I like demons. We're all a community of demons. Me again! Exclamation point. Admits feeling like I'm having a heart attack and a breakdown. I was hoping you could shed some light on a struggle I'm having in my LSAT prep. For context, which we would like, I'm trying to go to Ivy for law school or schools of the same rank/caliber. However, I have plateaued at 165. This score, while everyone keeps assuring me is great, is not getting me in. Okay, wow, this fits right into our discussion of success and failure. This isn't success for Anya.
Yeah.
Even if it is for others. I have gotten to a -3 average on logical reasoning and a -5 on reading comprehension, but I keep missing the same types of questions and it just won't click. I keep screwing up weaken/strengthen, could be true / most strongly supported / must be true. And I know main point. I know? Okay.
Well, she's saying she's embarrassed to admit that she's missing
main point
conclusion questions. And so she's saying, I know, but you don't know what I think, Anya. You think you know, but you don't know what I'm about to say. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So her final question is there a common thread here that is leading me astray?
Yes.
Love you guys for all you do, Anya.
Yeah. Your problem isn't those question types. You just named 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different question types.
Yeah. You're like covering
That's half the question types. That's not your problem. Your problem is you're not that good at the test. And that's okay. Stop thinking about the big picture and start thinking about the littler pictures. You need to review individual mistakes more thoroughly. I don't care that you frequently miss this question of this certain type, especially not when it's 6 different types. Your problem is that you're not understanding the words that you're reading. You're either not understanding the record, or you're not understanding the question, or you're not understanding the wrong answers that you're picking, or you're not understanding the right answer that you're failing to pick, or most likely, you're failing to understand some combination of all of those things because you're making 2 mistakes on every single question you miss. Mistake 1, picking a wrong answer. Mistake 2, failing to pick the correct answer that's right there on the page. You're not reading carefully enough, Anya. Students love rushing to these statistics and diagnostics and, these descriptors of, oh, well, this is a weaken question, and this is a strengthen question, and this is a could be true, must be true, most strongly supported, main point, whatever. You didn't understand the words that were on the page. And it's real hard for students to acknowledge that that's true. But if you're stuck at 165, it's because you're not understanding the words that are on the page. You need to accept that you're not reading well enough. You need to slow down. You need to read more carefully. You need to stop pushing yourself for 175 and instead try to get this question in front of you. Try to feel the click. Try to solve it to where you get it. You understand what it says. You understand what it's asking you. You understand why the right answer is right. And you understand why the wrong answers are wrong, and you feel confident. I'm picking the right answer here, and I know it can't be any of these other answers. When you start to do that, the test will be wildly easier than it is for you right now. You can feel the anxiety. I mean, she started off by talking about heart attacks and nervous breakdowns and stuff, right? She's probably rushing into, like, I have to take the test right now. I have to apply this cycle, and I have to go to the Ivy League, which means I have to get a 175. That's what's keeping you from getting a 168 or a 170 or a 172, is that you're like trying to do it all instead of just trying to understand this sentence that's right in front of you, the sentence after that, the argument that those sentences compose, the question that they're asking you, and the answer, singular, that actually answers the question. And it's just not about question types for somebody like Anya. And I also don't believe that she's stuck at a plateau. I think that that's probably a small sample. And I think that she needs to, instead of asking these bigger picture, higher level global questions, I think she needs to get more granular with it and just review individual mistakes more thoroughly. I guess last thing I would say is that if you're -5 on reading comprehension, that makes it even clearer to me that your problem is you're not reading carefully enough, because reading comprehension is very straightforward. All of the questions, save maybe one on reading comp, are just must be trues. By the way, most strongly supported, main point, must be true. They're all the same thing. And that's what reading comp is made up of, is all those questions, plus like one strengthen or weaken here or there. But it's mostly just must be trues. The record should support the correct answer. What did the record say? What are they asking me? Does this answer fairly represent the record? What do you want to say to Anya?
First, I would agree with everything you said.
Okay.
And I 100% think that Anya, like everyone else, needs to dig into the exact problems that are happening within each question.
Yep.
I just also wanted to add, and I think you're saying this, I'm just going to say it in a slightly different way, and that is that the LSAT fundamentally comes down to, I think, 2 skills. One, do you understand exactly what each sentence said? Nothing more, nothing less. And then, and this is kind of related to the first skill, so we could just leave it at that. But do you understand exactly what was said? And then do you understand what must be true on the basis of that claim? Nothing more, nothing less.
And that is just a corollary of the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you actually understand what it says,
mm-hmm.
then you should understand the implications of what it said.
Yep.
But people err in the first place by not understanding what it actually said.
Mm-hmm.
I just missed one word there. Yeah, you just missed one word. What do you think lawyers do all day? Yeah. Is fight over one word. Yep. So it's not, and people just kind of, they like brush that off. Like, oh, well, yeah, I misread that one. And I misread that part of that one. And that word, yeah. It said not. I didn't see the not there. Yeah. Oh, it says which one do they agree on? I thought it said which one do they disagree on? Mm-hmm. But it said agree. Oh, wow. The question makes a lot more sense now. And they just kind of go, oh, yeah, so that's okay. That's okay, because I just misread that one. But half your mistakes are going to come from simple misreadings at every level. Even at 165, half your mistakes are coming from just simply misreading things. So, but they err by not understanding what it actually said. I think that that's the most common error that people make. Yep. Then the next error that people make is that they allow themselves to like read more into it than was actually there. Yep. You want to say a little bit about that? Yeah. Well, I think some people might be pushing back and they're saying, wait a sec, the 2 skills you're talking about, trying to figure out what must be true on the basis of the information that you did read, is just a must be true question. But I'm struggling with weaken and strengthen questions. Yeah. It's like, no, they're exactly the same, because in a weaken question, you're given an argument, which means you have premises that you have to understand, read and understand, and then figure out what must be true on the basis of those premises, and then compare that inference to the main conclusion. And they will be different. And there, you've just used those same exact skills to identify what's wrong with that argument. And now you're ready to weaken it or strengthen it or find the necessary assumption or anything else that's right. Comes from that. So all of this comes back to, can you read exactly what the sentence said? And can you figure out what must be true, nothing more, nothing less, from that claim? And if you can, and if you keep working on those skills, everything else will start to come into play. Maybe we could play around with a little example of this. Sure. Suppose I said that a clown car can contain at most 4 red clowns.
Okay.
Step one, you have to read that carefully to understand. You got to read every word.
Yep.
And you really have to understand, okay, a clown car.
So we're not talking about all cars.
Right. And that's kind of the next step, but
Yeah.
it shows how they're the same step at once.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, this is a clown car, can contain at most 4 red clowns. So what does that mean? What does that say? And then we'll talk about what it doesn't say.
Yep. Okay. So if I have a clown car in front of me, I can put at most 4 red clowns in it. It doesn't tell me about anything else, so I don't know what else I could put in it. I mean, unless...
Right.
But, okay, let's just stick with the clowns for now. That doesn't mean there are any clowns there.
Right.
It doesn't mean that there are 4.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that it doesn't apply to any other car. It doesn't apply to every car in the circus. It applies to clown cars.
Yep. And notice I said too, if I have a clown car, because I'm not even saying that they exist.
Right. There might not be any clown cars available.
Yeah.
The clown car does not have to have any clowns in it. It doesn't have to have any red clowns in it. It doesn't limit the number of elephants that can be in the car. There could be infinite blue clowns. There could be infinite red jugglers in the circus car. The limitation is on clown cars only. It limits the maximum, not the minimum, of red clowns. That's it. No more and no less than that. It caps the maximum of red clowns in a clown car specifically. So when we read a statement like a clown car may have no more than 4 red clowns in it, we think about what it says, but we also start thinking immediately about what it does not say. And that's part of thinking through the implications of what a rule actually says. So you might have misread it in the first place. You might have missed the word red, for example. You might have thought that it said 4 clowns. You might have misread that we're only talking about clown cars. You might have misread that we're only talking about clowns, and red clowns specifically. But then you also might not have thought through the implications a little bit of like, well, so no limitation on blue clowns then.
Yeah, that's interesting because that does fall into this, what I would think is a semi-gray area. And that is, okay, wait, did the sentence limit the contents of the car to 4 red clowns and therefore nothing else can come in, including blue clowns? Or is it just talking about red clowns? And that is something that I would have in the back of my mind because another sentence would come in there and just clear it up, right? You're like, okay, they were limiting the number of red clowns. They weren't limiting it to like some universal claim that this is all that can be contained. But it is a thought in the back of my head, and I'm looking for more clues as to what exactly is meant.
Sure. If the rule said the clown car may contain no more than 4 red clowns, I think that barring any other restriction, you could have unlimited blue clowns. But there might be another rule there. There might be another premise in the same argument that says the only clowns in the circus are red. And then you'd go, oh, okay, so there can't be more than 4 clowns in this clown car necessarily because 4 red is the max and there's only red clowns available. So now there is a limit of 4 red clowns. That must be true based on the facts that were given. All right. Anyway, we're getting into the weeds with a weird hypothetical example for Anya.
Yeah. Bottom line is you just got to read every word and make sure you understand exactly what it's saying and then think about what it must imply.
Talk to your teacher about the individual mistakes you're making. Come to class and talk to me, Anya, about the actual LSAT question that you missed and that you don't understand. Talk to me about that right answer that you don't understand why it's right. Talk to me about that wrong answer where you don't understand that it's wrong. It makes perfect sense to us. And our job is to explain it to you so that it makes perfect sense to you. Until you ask us those questions, we can't answer them for you. Use the ask button as well if you're a Demon student. You can get clarification on every single wrong answer. You can get clarification on every single right answer. You can get clarification on premises. You can get clarifications on conclusions. You can ask our team of tutors, and I hope you do. But you got to go deeper into each individual mistake instead of all of this high level, -3 on LR, -5 on RC, plateauing at 165 on the LSAT. None of that really matters to me. Show me the individual questions that you're missing. Tell your doctor where it hurts. Yeah, you don't go into your doctor going, I can't play tennis anymore. You got to talk to your doctor about why you can't play tennis anymore. Oh, well, it's my body. My body's just killing me. Yeah, not good enough.
Yeah.
Well, it's my elbow. Okay, let's see your elbow. Let's move it around. Show me the movement specifically that you can't do anymore. And then I can start to actually fix your ailment.
Thanks for writing in, Anya.
Thanks, Anya.
Yeah, keep us posted. This next one is from Anonymous.
Hey, Demon Team. I have not taken the LSAT, but I have been using LSAT Demon and have seen improvements. I'm averaging around 170, and I'll study until I feel ready to take it. I've graduated undergrad with a Credential Assembly Service GPA of 3.84, and I am a STEM major. I'm taking a one-year master's program at the same university I did my undergrad at, starting this fall. Why? I have the opportunity to take elective classes along with classes required for the master's program. I really want to take elective classes that are more aligned to my academic interests and would provide me with more contact to professors I would like to network with. But these classes would be harder. I could also take easy filler classes to help boost my GPA.
I think we need to step back. I mean, I guess we should finish this to get more context, but it
Sure.
seems like, why are you doing a master's program if the elective classes are more aligned to your academic interest than your master's program? I mean, presumably they're part of the master's program, so hopefully it all aligns. But yeah, I'm curious why you're going to law school.
And Anonymous just doesn't understand how the process works. I'll finish Anonymous's email. I'm
yeah.
at a dilemma on what I should do / how you would make a decision. I think regardless of which option, even under the best situations, I could max my GPA at 3.92, but it could stay as low as 3.84, ideally not lower. This range would be at / slightly below the medians at my top choices. But Ben, Anonymous said earlier, I have graduated undergrad.
Yeah, that's
with
the key
a Credential
fact.
Assembly Service GPA of 3.84.
Yep. I was wondering if the master's program was going to get wrapped into Anonymous's undergrad, but not if
I don't think it can.
Not if you've graduated. So I missed that. Yep.
Yeah, unless we're missing something. My understanding, and Ben, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're right. No, you're totally right. Graduated.
When you graduate with your first bachelor's degree, your Credential Assembly Service GPA is set in stone at that point.
Yeah.
No further bachelor's or master's or any other, nothing. No further classes are going to affect your UGPA. So you're really asking the wrong questions here. And I would sincerely question why you're doing any master's at all. If you're serious about law school, the JD is going to trump whatever master's program this is.
Yeah, or vice versa. Are you serious about law school? Like, if you're really interested in the master's program and the classes that they're offering, take the hard classes, pursue that career, enjoy your life.
Yeah, and Ben and I would both unequivocally say, if you can do STEM, you should do STEM instead.
Yep.
Like, stick with sciences. Stick with your technical training. Not everybody can do that. You get into the law school world, you're going to be competing with a whole bunch of English language specialists who can't do the technical stuff that you've already done.
Yep.
You took calculus. Most people who go to law school can't do calculus ever. And you're like sacrificing
one talent.
You got the science brain. What are you doing?
Yeah.
It's like Michael Jordan trying to play baseball. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You're one of the best NBA players of all time. Well, you can't hit. What are you doing? Why are you not to say that you can't also do the LSAT or law school. I mean, I'm sure you could, but it's so much like there are so many fewer people who can do the STEM stuff. And I feel like the STEM stuff has so many more practical, beneficial applications.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks for writing in. Next one is from Anonymous. The subject is GPA Addendum.
Dear Ben and Nathan, I aim to attend a T14 law school, specifically Harvard, UVA, or Duke. I first took the LSAT in June of 2023 and received a 161, semicolon. However, thanks to the LSAT demon and an extra year of study, I am constantly scoring between 171 and 173. Nice.
Cool.
I am taking the September LSAT and hope to squeeze out an extra point or two by test day. What I'm worried about is my 3.75 GPA. During my freshman year of college, I struggled due to the COVID-19 online class structure and readjusting to academic life after taking 2 years off to serve a religious mission in South America. However, I received nearly straight A's in my sophomore through senior years. Should I write a GPA addendum explaining why my freshman year grades were lower?
No.
Wait. Well, yeah. Okay. So you're saying no to the explanation, not to the addendum, right?
Yeah. You should write a GPA addendum that says, I received nearly straight A's in my sophomore through senior years.
Yeah. Well, actually, just give the GPA, right? This is what I got my last 3 years.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Leave it at that.
Yep.
Nobody wants to hear you complaining about COVID-19 online class structures. Nobody wants to hear your second excuse about readjusting to academic life after taking 2 years off to serve a religious mission in South America. Especially when you make both of those excuses, everybody just thinks you're full of shit.
Yep.
I'm not saying I think you're full of shit. I'm saying that you are presenting a bad argument by giving those two excuses. I would prefer one excuse, but I would prefer even more than that, no excuses.
You don't
Point
need them.
to
Yeah.
the record that actually helps your case, which is I got a 3.9 whatever in my sophomore through senior year.
Scoreboard.
Leave it at that.
Scoreboard.
Exactly.
Look, this is what I did. What other questions is there to ask?
Exactly.
Right? Okay. Anonymous finishes. I don't want to come off as if I'm making excuses for my lower grades, but my transcript does back up my story. Yes, it does. That's what we're talking about. I love the demon and I appreciate your help! Exclamation point. Yeah, you got this. Just keep it simple. Hey, what about changing that GPA? Should we appeal that at all?
Well, definitely possible. I mean, if you haven't heard this yet, Anonymous, we have heard dozens of people who have said that they were able to get back to they're able to go back to their undergraduate institution and get them to change a D that they got during COVID to a no credit or something, or like a withdrawal.
Yeah.
Or they were able to, I retook a class, but you put both of my grades on my transcript. LSAC counts both if both are on my transcript. You might be able to get your undergraduate school to take the poor grade off your transcript entirely, in which case LSAC can't hold it against you. So there are things that you might be able to do to rehabilitate that 3.75, which already is good, but every point counts. So you might be able to bump that up a little bit. So yeah, good point, Ben. I want to just push back a little bit on the idea that the transcript backs up your story. It doesn't actually back up your story.
Oh yeah, sorry, not the story. It backs up the scoreboard and that's it. Just leave it at that. Yeah.
The story sucks.
Yeah.
Excuses are like assholes, right? It's just, you can just don't talk about that.
Yep.
Talk about the part that benefits you, which is the higher grade point average during your sophomore through senior years. Don't focus on the bad year. Don't focus on the, because otherwise the skeptical reader goes, really, why couldn't you adapt to online classes in COVID? Everybody else did.
Yep.
Or, oh, really? It was that hard to readjust to academic life after 2 years off with a religious mission in South America? Well, then why did you do that religious mission in South America? Or why was it so hard for you? It's not hard for these other people.
Yep.
So your transcript is good for you. Your transcript is in your favor, but the story isn't helping you. I would just leave that out, and I would instead just point to the scoreboard from your sophomore through senior years.
I don't know if this is the best example, but it does make me think about politicians. They get asked questions all the time that they don't want to answer, and they do somehow develop the skill of answering a different question.
Oh, do you stick to your talking points?
Yeah, that puts them in a better light, right?
Yeah.
You feel compelled to explain the bad year or the bad whatever. You're way more concerned about that than the admissions people are. They want to hear good news. So
Yeah.
say, hey, look, we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about whether I
Yeah.
succeeded. And that's what they're going to have in their heads. And that's what they're going to take away with them
Yeah.
when they have to make a decision about whether to accept you or not.
And all you're doing is creating more tape of you talking about the worst parts of yourself.
Yeah. No.
Right. So politicians, slippery, good politicians don't do that.
Nope.
They take a question which is specifically asking them about the worst part of their candidacy, and they somehow immediately start responding with their achievements, accolades, their family and church or whatever. So, they just all of a sudden are talking. It's like, what? I didn't ask you about that. Yeah, I know, but I got my talking points and I'm going to tell you those talking points over and over and over. It's all I'm ever going to do. So you've got the opportunity here if you want to write this addendum, but just don't make the excuses. If you don't want to sound like you're making excuses for your lower grades, then don't make excuses for your lower grades. Instead, just point to the better grades. And that's it.
Yeah. Great. This next one is from Tom. The subject is supplemental essays.
Hello, Demon Team. I'm a longtime listener preparing to submit my applications this fall. I've listened to Thinking LSAT episodes from your earlier days where you advised students not to submit optional essays. Given the recent changes in the admissions process due to the affirmative action decision, I'm curious about your current stance on these essays. It seems like they're designed to help schools identify any red flags and gauge how many hoops applicants are willing to jump through. I'm eager to hear your thoughts. Thank you, Tom. Has your thinking about optional essays changed over the years?
It probably has, although I don't remember saying not to submit them. My feeling has always been, I think, at least it is today, if you have something good to say, it's going to add to your statement or your application, say it and take the time to say it well. If you don't have something good to say, don't say it because it's not going to add to your application.
And it might actually hurt your application.
Yeah, it could hurt you.
You don't have to file every single motion.
Yep.
But you probably should file any motions that might actually benefit you.
Yep. Don't hide good information.
Right. And if there's an opportunity to file for summary judgment in your favor, and you think that there's a non-zero chance that you're actually going to get your motion granted, then you should probably file that motion for summary judgment in your favor.
Yep.
But if it's just some annoying motion that isn't really going to help you and might only annoy the judge,
or expose something that you don't want to bring light to, what we were just talking about. Oh, tell us more about your first year that was hard for you. No.
Yeah. If they say like, if you would like to explain a discrepancy between your first and any subsequent LSAT tests, I don't think I would file that unless I had to.
Yep.
If they made it mandatory, I would say something like, I knew I could do better, so I took it again.
Yep.
But what they might be fishing for is for you to say something like, oh, well, I didn't really study the first time, which doesn't make you look good. Or you might say something like, oh, well, I was allowed double time testing accommodations, and that's why I scored higher, which also is not a feather in your cap. So I think we're aligned here, Ben, that you should file optional essays that benefit you by filing them. Otherwise, don't.
Yep.
Next one is from Anonymous. The subject is growing confidence.
Hi, guys! ! Love your podcast. You guys make me crack up, and I just switched onto the Demon and just got a 179 in a practice test! ! Your platform completely changed my mind of how I view the LSAT, particularly LR. I enjoy your guys' intuitive approach. The previous LSAT prep platform I was using heavily focused on formal logic, diagramming, etc. I was just wondering, how do you guys advise pushing away from doing/viewing the LSAT through all this diagramming? I see myself constantly doubting myself in the test, and even though I am doing well, I need some tips on trusting my gut. I constantly doubt my answers despite knowing the answers are right. I think sometimes when I get the answer, it shouldn't be that easy, especially with this switch away from the formal logic. So looking for some tips. Wow, tips for a 179 score.
Just keep going. You can't get a lucky 179. I mean, like maybe your true ability was a 174 and you happen to get the very tip of the best part of your personal bell
Yeah.
curve. And that's okay. You know, I mean, your next test might be a 169 and the one after that might be a 174, and you might bounce around in the 170s. And that's totally fine and expected. But you're not getting that kind of a score by just only pure luck. You're understanding what you're reading. And when you understand what you read, you realize that the questions are totally solvable. The LSAT is easy. It is easy. It makes sense. The right answers are right. The facts, the argument said a certain thing. They asked you a question about those facts or a question about that argument. The right answer is the only one that actually answers the question. The 4 wrong answers are demonstrably wrong. They're provably wrong answers. It's not a test of second bests. There's 1 right answer and 4 wrong answers for every single LSAT question. And jettisoning all this bullshit, formal logic, diagramming, all the dumb LSAT lessons that you might have learned elsewhere, it does. It makes the test easier, and your score has skyrocketed because of it. It's amazingly easy what we do. I'm glad you've seen the benefits. Probably need to take a few more practice tests just so that you can prove it to yourself. But there's no magic to this. You're understanding what you're reading, and when you do, the test just opens up. I don't know. What else do you want to say to Anonymous?
The only thing I would add is, and I'm stealing this from Danny Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Slow, and that is that when you use your intuitive brain, one, you're using a much bigger, more powerful, faster part of your brain. The one trick here is that it's often a thought process that's in the dark. It's more about reading and trying to understand and feel the idea, as opposed to diagramming or drawing, in which you can now do work with a smaller part of your brain that's more analytical and slower, but you can see the book, I think, described it as intuitive thinking takes place in the part of the brain where the lights are off, and analytical thinking takes place in the part of the brain where the lights are on. So you can see what's happening, but it's a much heavier, hands-on, slower, subject to error place because you're not tapping into that intuitive gut, deep understanding that comes when things click and click fast.
Yeah. The right answers should feel right. The wrong answers should feel wrong. And you got that 175 because you understood that there really was just one right answer. I think you just need to keep going, keep doing what you've been doing. Just don't worry about it. You know, the test really is that easy. So I'm glad, I'm glad you've seen that 179. Hopefully you won't have imposter syndrome. You can do it again. If you can do it once, you can do it again. So congratulations. Welcome to the Demon. Happy to have you.
Yeah. Great. This next article is just an article that I read. It's a Business Insider article about how companies are using AI to price discriminate.
Yep.
There's not a lot to say here, except for price discrimination happens in a lot of places, and now apparently it's happening even more. I
saw it yesterday.
Oh, what'd you see it in?
Apple. I saw it in the App Store in Apple.
Okay. Yeah. Wow.
I was logged on to my own App Store, and I was logged on to my future stepdaughter's device as well.
Okay. Yep.
Looking at the same game, 2 different prices.
No way. That's pretty crazy.
Yep.
Yeah. So this article talked about how Uber might, although they deny it, charge you more for rides if your battery is low because they know you're desperate. We've seen price discrimination in plane tickets for a long time. Of course, there's wildly different prices, but I think the point is that if these sorts of things make you angry, then you should be angry, very angry about an astronomically higher priced item such as law school being wildly price discriminated from some people getting paid to go to the other extreme of paying the full price.
Yeah. Economists love this this idea, by the way. I mean, the name it's got a horrifying name, price discrimination, because discrimination, everybody thinks discrimination is bad, right?
Hmm.
But economists don't mean anything bad by it. They just happen to call it price discrimination because they're going to
Yeah.
charge everybody a different price. Economists love it because if you can charge everybody a different price based on how willing they are to pay, then you can maximize your profit that way,
Yep.
maximize your revenue that way.
Yep. Maximize the utility curve, right? Yeah.
Right. And so law schools absolutely do this. When people apply narrowly, when they only apply to one school instead of many,
Yeah.
if you tip your hand and you let them understand that, they're your one true love and you're not going to go anywhere else.
And you haven't applied anywhere else. So what are you going to do if they say no scholarship?
If you don't have an LSAT or a GPA that would get you into other more prestigious schools, then they know that you should be willing to pay more to go to their school, and they will charge you more to go to their school by withholding scholarship dollars. They don't
Yep.
call it price discrimination. They preserve this fiction of, oh no, the tuition's the same for everybody.
Yep.
Well, yeah, okay, the tuition is the same for everybody. But when you're a school like Wash U giving some sort of grants to 96% of the student population,
Hmm.
then yeah, nominally, like there's this fiction that everybody pays the same price, but they don't because you give everybody grants and thereby give everybody a different price. So law schools do this en masse. And it's an economist's wet dream, frankly. Sorry for being like crude, but this is just like the fantasy of an economist.
Yep.
Imagine an industry where you have this cover scholarships
Yep.
for perfect price discrimination, where you can charge everybody, literally charge everyone a different price, which it strikes us as wildly unfair, right? If you go into the 7-Eleven to buy a Coke and you see the person in front of you pay 49 cents and they want to charge you $3.49, you're going to say fuck off and walk out of there.
Yep.
It like strikes our tribal, like our evolutionary
Sensibilities. Yeah.
yeah, you see that and you go, that's unfair. Like you can't treat me like that.
Yep.
That's just not fair. But that's exactly what they do in the law school context. And not only do they get to perfectly price discriminate in private via, oh, well, here's our tuition fees, but then here also is our scholarships. Not only that, but they get to separate the moment of payment by 3 or 4 years
Ugh.
via government sponsored financing.
Yeah. It suffers both from price discrimination and an industry where, like healthcare, the payer is separated from the recipient.
It's a temporary third-party payer problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where you don't feel like it's not me, I'm not paying for it. It's the government, it's student loans that are paying for it. And I've got all these like official looking people in suits standing up there making presentations about how student debt is green light, credit card debt, that's red light.
Mm-hmm.
But student debt, green light.
Mm-hmm.
Do it. It's great. It's good.
Yeah.
It's good.
Go.
Everybody should do it. Everybody should borrow money. At the same time, you have, I think, misguided politicians who are out there forgiving student debt without solving the student debt creation problem in the first place. But that's a
Yeah.
separate issue. But, it's just this like fantasy for greedy, profit motivated players, namely the law schools.
Not that there's anything inherently wrong with that, in the sense that we're all greedy, right?
I'm a capitalist.
It's just a natural human. It's like
Yeah.
they're just maximizing, they're doing what's best for their school. And unfortunately, they're able to do that because of the massive amounts of money that are available to students. Imagine if students didn't have access to that cash. They would simply have to say, no, I cannot afford that price.
Right.
And the schools would have to come down.
Right.
It's
But
a
instead-
broken system.
Instead, we have a system where the government's actually encouraging you to borrow money to go to these schools in the name of justice and fairness and access and whatever else. There's no cap on how much schools can charge you. tuition wise.
Mm-hmm.
They are allowed to perfectly price discriminate by giving people scholarships so that not everybody, or in fact, in many instances, hardly anybody is paying the full price. Everybody's paying a different price. And it's government financed until you graduate, at which point they now demand that you start paying it back, and you cannot get rid of that debt in bankruptcy.
Yep.
It's a broken system. And the reason why the last thing we say on every podcast is don't pay for law school is because you should take advantage of this system. You should know the game that you're playing. The game is being played on you if you don't, like, if you're not savvy about how you do this. So it's not a blessing to get in. It's you have to think about the price. And that's the other part of this, right? Is that they even have this, like, not everybody is even allowed to purchase this product. There's this, like, mystique of, oh, it's
Yeah, because you're applying to get in. You're on a wait list.
You'd be so privileged to even get to pay us full price.
Mm-hmm.
Pay no mind to the other people over here who are paying zero or getting paid to go to our school or getting, 75% off or whatever. You would be blessed to even get to go here.
Yep. And people feel that. They're like, if I could just get in,
Right.
I would go. Before we move on, I do want to move on. But there are these moments in your life, right, where you remember this thing happening or you learning something and you remember everything about the moment. I studied econ in undergrad, and I still remember the day when I learned about price discrimination. And the professor was very animated. He was diagramming. He's like, look, these people are willing to pay this much. These people down here are willing to pay this much. And if we can bring the price up for each of these people, then the school can get this much money rather than some lower amount, right? If they all charge the same price. And you can get more people into the school because you can actually charge less for people who otherwise wouldn't be willing to pay that much. And he was so excited about this, and he had tried to convince the administration to do more price discrimination, and they had rejected it. And I remember sitting in my chair and being like, oh, wow, this feels so wrong, but it makes so much sense.
Oh, yeah.
And like, I could see why he's so animated and wants the school to implement greater price discrimination for tuition. But I could also see why they just told them to bug off. They're like, hey, we're not going to do that. Some schools obviously do. This wasn't law school. It was undergrad. But
I was taught to do it in undergrad. I mean, I was a managerial economics major at University of California, Davis in the 90s. And that's where I learned about price discrimination, because it was like showing you the supply and demand curves. And it was like, imagine if you didn't have to pick a single price. Mm-hmm. Imagine what you could do if you could charge different prices for everybody along this thing. And they showed me Disneyland, and they showed me how Disneyland charges one price, but then they also have lots and lots of discounts: military, veterans, locals, people who might be willing to pay, I would go more if I could pay a little less. Okay, yeah, but we want to still be able to charge tourists from thousands of miles away full price. Oh, okay. So you create these little barriers so that you can figure out how to charge people different prices, thereby maximizing your profit. And it's actually taught in schools. Can we skip Johnny's email, maybe push Johnny to next week so that we can get to word of the week?
Yeah, totally.
So this is coming from Hamilton. I just went and saw Hamilton recently on Broadway, and it was awesome. And it motivated me to actually read the book, Hamilton. So Hamilton, Alexander Hamilton, was reading the skeptical Scottish philosopher David Hume. And he quoted Hume's view that in framing a government, quote, every man ought to be supposed a knave and to have no other end in all his actions but private interests, end quote. The task of government was not to stop selfish striving, which is a hopeless task, but to harness it for the public good. Related to the conversation that we were just talking about with price discrimination, I thought it was interesting that Hamilton, who ended up founding the banking system of the United States, basically. It was interesting that Hamilton was reading this thought from Hume about how governments should be founded. The word of the week is knave. Again, every man ought to be supposed a knave and to have no other end in his actions but private interests. What does the word knave mean?
So I've definitely heard that word before, but I've forgotten its definition. That said, on the basis of a context, it seems like someone who's not an angel, just selfish maybe, or yeah.
Definition, according to Merriam-Webster, is a tricky, deceitful fellow.
Mm-hmm.
So what Hume was saying there is that the government shouldn't stop people or entities from trying to be selfish, because that's hopeless, but instead should be trying to harness that selfish interest for the public good. The reason why I wanted this to be word of the week was I wanted you to consider whether our current student loan system would live up to Hume's idea there.
It seems to be based on the assumption that the schools will do what's best for the students.
I think so too. I think that the student loan policies of our country have failed to consider that the schools might behave in their own private interest. They've failed to assume that the schools will be knaves.
Yep.
They've bought this bullshit that the schools are there for the benefits of the students and that they're not there to make profits for
They're
themselves.
non-profit institutions of higher learning.
Right. That pay their executives and their professors hundreds of thousands of dollars per year, that build up huge endowments, that build gigantic monuments to themselves.
In other words, they're just human.
They're human. Yeah. The organizations are made up of humans, and humans, as Hume knew, were knaves.
Yep.
Want to wrap it up there?
Yeah.
You can be LSAT famous, ask us questions, or share news with us on our website, thinkinglsat.com, or on the socials at LSATdemon. If you have questions about the LSAT Demon, you can email help@lsatdemon.com. Please check out our other podcast, LSAT Demon Daily. That was episode 464 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. Thanks all y'all for listening. Nice knowing you. Don't pay for law school.